Hello viewers, welcome back to the No Bus Fan. As always, I hope you've been keeping well and keeping safe. Before we get to the topic of today's video, I just want to mention that there's now a new way that you can support the channel a bit more directly through a page on the website called Ko-fi. That's spelled K-O-F-I. You can find the link in the description of this video and all future videos to come. Basically, the way it works is that you can support me directly by buying me a cup of coffee. And that support can be in as many times as you like, as many coffees as you like. It starts at $3, I believe. $3 Canadian, I think, is how much I set it to. So it's probably not too much if you're from the US. So if you feel so inclined to support the channel a bit more directly than through likes and comments and all that. That link is always in the description below, but there's absolutely no obligation, of course, and I appreciate all sorts of support in any way, so definitely check it out, and well, let's get on to the topic of today's video. So as it's pretty obvious by the title, this is the third REM construction update here on the channel, and this one's probably the most important when it comes to me personally, as I live about a 15-minute bus ride from the location of this extension, and that is the South Shore extension. For a lot of people, this is probably the most pivotal section, as it's finally the long-awaited second rapid transit link to the South Shore from Montreal that I think a lot of people have been hoping for many years. Not to mention that a light rail project was originally planned for the South Shore going back to the 1990s, and this is basically that taken up another level. So without further ado, let's talk about it. So for connections, the South Shore branch will start at Gare Centrale, basically, coming right off the Montagne core of the line, as we discussed in the previous update, connecting to Griffintown and Ile-des-Sœurs before crossing the brand new Samuel de Champlain Bridge down the middle deck that was built specifically for public transit use, before making it to Brossard at the Panama REM station, which, if you check out the last video that I posted on the channel, or actually one of the last videos, the Hotspots of Montreal Transit at Terminus Panama, you will have seen the entire construction, or what's going on right now at that station, in light of the REM coming along. That is the first and probably the most major stop on the South Shore. After the REM continues another 2 stops to Du Quartier, which is in the Quartier des Trente shopping area and residential sector. It's a growing residential sector of a lot of condominium projects and whatnot. And finally, it ends at Brossard station, which was originally called rive-sud, but they've since renamed it for the city that it's located in, and it being the south end of the REM network. And that is the final stop for now, though, rive-sud, along with the South Shore Maintenance Center and the control center for the entire network that will be located there. So as mentioned earlier, a light rail project has been discussed for the South Shore for a number of years, at least since the 1990s, I believe since 1999, even the late 90s. This was first talked about and proposed by the Réseau de Transport de Longueuil, or RTL, on the South Shore to link Panama, Chevrier, and others in that sector at the time to downtown Montreal via the existing structure that is the icebreaker that was built for the original Champlain Bridge back in the 1960s. Of course, this would mean a complete restructuring of that structure, a rebuilding of that structure, and an extension of it, because it doesn't actually fully cross the St. Lawrence River, stopping short of the Seaway. But this was the initial plan and initial proposal made by the RTL back in the 90s, and it was again evolved over the years up until the proposal of the REM, of course. And even I remember seeing a few render images that I'll probably pop up on screen for you of a SkyTrain-like type of rolling stock being used on this prospective South Shore LRT, or light rail connection. They use a CGI graphic of what looked a lot like the Mark I or Mark II SkyTrain rolling stock from Vancouver, which I found pretty interesting. Of course, the only difference being that it would be running off overhead wires, since a third rail option has never been really an ideal option here in Montreal, with our winter climate being the way it is. Hence why the Montreal Metro is entirely indoors, and I don't think we'll ever go outside unless they decide to change away from rubber-tired rolling stock. But I found that pretty interesting, and of course that project eventually evolved into what we know now as the REM, and is actually happening in a much more modern sense. So now on to the actual sites of the stations themselves that I got to visit, or rather that I went and visited in the last couple of weeks. being that it's still quite an interesting time that we're living in with the whole coronavirus situation. So basically there wasn't a lot of traffic around, and even construction for the REM project hadn't restarted yet until the 11th of May, which was, at the time of recording, this past Monday. So basically it was a lot emptier and not a lot of things were going on, but you could still get a perfectly good vantage point of the works going on. But I guess before I get to the discount area per se, I'll just give you a quick look at what the Panama construction looks like. Of course, if you've seen my Hotspots of Montreal transit video about Terminus Panama, you will have seen this shot of the station building going up slowly between the lanes of Autoroute 10. Now, this is pretty much the extent of what's going on there in terms of the actual station building so far. So not much progress has been made yet there. There's also a permanent divider now in the middle of Autoroute 10 coming off the new Semred de Champlain bridge in light of them excavating the middle lane into the REM tracks eventually. But other than that, there hasn't been a whole lot of development when it comes to the actual rail infrastructure at Panama. Only a few preparation works have begun, and of course they're about to clear out the terminus, as I mentioned in that last Hotspots video. If you want to go and watch it, I'll link it up in the cards, by the way. But other than that, there isn't a ton that's particularly visible yet at Panama. So now on to our next station stop, which is Du Quartier. This is the main station connecting the REM to the discount area, right along the aptly named Boulevard du Quartier, which has a new overpass that goes over Autoroute 10, which has been long requested. And along with the REM project has finally been realized, which will include an access directly on the overpass, by the way, via the walking path that's on the south side of the overpass. Also, what's pretty interesting about Du Quartier, obviously at first glance, is that it is probably the most complete example of a REM station right now at this stage in May 2020. The building is mostly finished. There are still electrical works to be done. There's still aesthetic works obviously to be done. It's not a complete station, but you can make out pretty much everything that will be there, from the access points, both from the west side and the east side via footbridges. On the west side, there is an access building of sorts, like a small jetty, out from the footbridge, right behind the Cineplex Theatre in the discount, which is also, once again, basically finished other than the final decorative stuff and all that stuff. But there are glass panes in, by the way. The windows are pretty much done with all around the station, which is very interesting to see. There's even tracks laid at this point, which is for the eventual testing of the rolling stock, which is supposed to start by the end of the year. We're gonna have to see if that timeline is retained, but fingers crossed that it is. It would be cool to see some REM equipment doing tests by the end of the year. I think that would make a pretty cool video. It's still very much a sign of deep progress at the point of Du Quartier. The final stop on the South Shore, and also, like I said, the southern terminus of the REM, is Brossard Station, previously known as rive-sud Station when the project was first presented. This station is just past the Highway 10 and Highway 30 intersection on the southwest side. So basically you have this viaduct that crosses the highway from the middle portion where the Du Quartier station and the tracks go all the way to Panama, and then along across to the bridge, and crosses over to the west side of the highway before terminating the REM at this point. And basically this is also a pretty major spot because it's not just the station, but it's also the location of the South Shore Maintenance Center, which is going to be one of two. The other one being in Dermontagne, which is actually already in use right now, servicing Dermontagne commuter line trains until the end of the service of this commuter line in 2021. This station will be a pretty major point where trains will be stored, as well as pretty much everything that goes up the line can originate from here. Going either to Dermontagne, the airport, or the West Island could all start from rive-sud, while the other terminuses will only be terminuses for their branches. So this is a pretty major spot, and in light of that, there will be a bus terminal that will be going in here, and you can already start to see the structural portions of what could be potentially an indoor terminus. I'm not sure. I've seen a couple of plans for it. It doesn't look to be indoors from the initial renders that I've seen. It might be an outdoor terminus instead, but we will see. It kind of does look like it could be a building of some kind, or at least a fully covered canopy for the waiting areas for buses. This will be a bus terminal probably for some RTL buses, but it's mainly meant for EXO regional service. Basically the entire southwest portion of the South Shore as well as the Chaudière Valley could connect from here as a secondary connection point to the REM, other than Panama, which will be probably pretty saturated when it becomes basically the gateway of bus and rapid transit directly into Montreal, the closest to Montreal. And of course, there's also the plans for the proposed extension to Chambly, which would actually not continue past the Brossard station. Like, you couldn't get on at Brossard and go to Chambly. You'd have to get on at Du Quartier, because from what I heard, basically it'll become its own branch at that stage, and Chambly will be a extra branch line off from Du Quartier. So basically, I think the consortium had to modify the viaduct over the highway to make for that to work. We'll see how that happens in the future. Of course, this was an electoral promise by the current government here in Quebec. Of course, nothing has been said about it since, but they have other bigger fish to fry at this moment, and REM extension, so we'll see what happens in the future. And well, that basically covers the South Shore extension, or South Shore branch rather, as it stands today in May 2020. Much progress has been going on. It's, of course, to me, it's the most developed portion of the REM right now. I'd say barring the West Island area, where there's actually a lot of overhead viaducts being completed and being put up as we speak. It's actually pretty impressive to see. I've seen it before, but I'd like to go and check it out again soon. So stay tuned for that. That might be one of the next ones. I'm not sure. It'll depend on when I can get back into the city, being with the whole thing that's going on right now. I don't want to push my luck per se. And let me know if you want to see anything specific about the system in a future video, or if you have any other ideas for topics I can cover in future videos. I always love to hear your feedback. Definitely comment below, get subscribed and notified if you haven't already. And don't forget, you can come and support me directly if you feel so inclined over at the Nova Bus Fan's coffee page, coffee.com/thenovabusfan, also linked below. Oh, and one more thing, one more little self-promotion, I guess. I brought back the Nova Bus Fan Instagram page that you can also check out below. All those links, all three of those links for Instagram, Facebook, and coffee are linked below as usual. So go and check them out. I really do appreciate it. But other than that, that's been it. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I thank you so much for your support. And of course, once again, a big thank you for over 2,000 subscribers. It really does mean a lot, and hopefully I can live up to that with the future content coming soon. I hope to see you guys somewhere down the line, and I'll catch you guys later. Cheers.